Don't call the police. They belong to him. Have you ever seen two identical faces and known that one would save you while the other would destroy you? That's the choice Nyla faced the night she ran through Koreatown's rain-soaked alleys, blood on her hands and a killer's face burned into her memory. She stumbled, gasping for air. Her palm hit the brick wall too late. Down she went, hard pavement, sharp pain, blood mixing with rainwater on the asphalt. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. She looked up. A man stood at the alley's entrance, purple neon from the bar sign casting half his face in shadow. Tall, broad shoulders, that face. For one terrible second, she thought he'd found her. The man from the private room. The one who'd given the order while 3 men died on their knees. But then he stepped closer, and she saw it. The difference. This man's eyes held concern, not ice. "Hey, you're hurt." He crouched down, holding a black umbrella over both of them. Rain drummed the fabric. "I'm calling for help." "Don't!" She grabbed his wrist, her fingers shaking. "Please." "Why not?" "Because the police in this neighborhood belong to him." His jaw tightened. He didn't ask who. Something in his expression said he already knew. "Then come with me," he said quietly. Nyla followed him through the bar's side door, down a hallway thick with the smell of grilled meat and stale beer. Her mind kept spinning back, the frosted glass door, 3 figures on their knees, that cold voice. End it. Then gunshots. Quick. Clean. Final. She'd been outside with a drink tray. Through the frosted glass, she'd seen shapes and shadows, the unmistakable angle of a weapon. She'd dropped everything and run. But not before her phone, tucked in her apron pocket, captured the audio. She'd been recording herself singing earlier, practicing for a street performance. She'd never stopped the recording. Now they had her name, her scarf, left behind, embroidered by her grandmother. The man led her into a small break room. One overhead bulb cast yellow light across a folding table, 2 chairs, a first aid kit. He washed his hands and opened the kit. His movements were calm as he cleaned her scraped palms with antiseptic. She hissed at the sting. "You work here?" she asked. "Night shift. Bartender." He wrapped gauze around her hands. "Park Dojin." Her chest tightened. That last name. Park. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, though she wasn't. He leaned against the table. "You said they belonged to him. Who?" She closed her eyes. That face flashed in her mind. Sharp features, emotionless gaze, the way he'd looked at those men like they were nothing. The man who killed them. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "He looks exactly like you." Dojin went completely still. "Exactly?" She met his eyes. "Identical. Same face, same height, everything." For a moment, only the refrigerator's hum filled the silence. Dojin's expression shifted, confusion melting into recognition, then something darker. Dread. "When?" His voice was tight now. 3 hours ago. Private room at a Korean barbecue place. Frosted glass." She pulled her knees up. "I saw him execute 3 people. No hesitation." Dojin rubbed his face with both hands. "That's my twin brother. Do-kwon." "Your twin." "Park. Do-kwon." He said the name like a curse. 2 identical men. 2 opposite lives. And she stood in the middle. "He's hunting me, isn't he?" It wasn't really a question. Dojin's expression answered before his words did. "You left something behind?" "My scarf. My name's on it." She touched her throat where the scarf usually sat. Dojin closed his eyes briefly. When they opened, she saw something familiar there. The same haunted look she'd carried since losing her brother to violence years ago. Grief. Guilt. The weight of surviving. "Then we're running out of time," he said. Dojin moved to the small window and looked out at the rain-soaked alley. His reflection stared back at him, tired, worn, but still standing. He'd spent years trying to escape the shadow of his family, the Park family, a name that carried weight in certain circles, a name built on blood and silence. His brother had stayed. Dojin had left. And now the shadow had found him anyway. Behind him, Nyla was humming, soft, almost unconscious. A melody he didn't recognize but somehow felt familiar. It reminded him of the subway station near his apartment, the street singers who performed for coins and hope. "You're a singer," he said, still looking out the window. The humming stopped. "I was. Before tonight." He turned to face her. She was looking at her bandaged hands, her expression distant. "What changed tonight?" he asked. She looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed but steady. "I saw people die, and I realized, if I don't say something, they disappear, like they never existed." Dojin felt something crack open in his chest. He'd spent so long trying to forget his family, to pretend the darkness didn't touch him. But here was this woman, a stranger, willing to risk everything just to make sure the dead weren't forgotten. "That's brave," he said quietly. "That's survival," she corrected. "Where I'm from, silence is the same as saying yes. I can't do that anymore." Across the city, in a sky bar overlooking the glittering lights of Seoul, Park Do-kwon stood by the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand. His phone buzzed. He answered without looking. "We found the scarf," his subordinate said. "Name's embroidered on it. Nyla Brooks, street singer. Works the subway near Hongdae. We have her address." "Good." Do-kwon's voice was flat. "Find her, quietly." "Yes, sir." He ended the call and took a sip of whiskey. The liquid burned going down. Behind him, his reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. Sharp suit, cold eyes. The face of a man who'd learned to bury everything soft and breakable. He'd built this life brick by brick. He'd clawed his way to the top of the Park family's empire, survived his father's betrayal, and eliminated every threat before it could touch him. And he would do it again, even if the witness was just a girl with a voice and a scarf. When the truth you're protecting could destroy the only family you have left, where do you draw the line? Hit that like button if you want to see how this unfolds. The streets were empty when Dojin locked up the bar. Nyla stayed close, hood pulled low, just the distant hum of traffic and flickering neon signs. "Where are we going?" she asked. "An old karaoke place. Been closed for months, but I kept the key." They walked in silence. Nyla's mind kept circling back. The frosted glass, the figures behind it, muffled gunfire. "Why did he do it?" she asked suddenly. "Kill them. They were begging." Dojin's jaw tightened. "Because they were a threat, or knew something, or crossed the wrong person." He shook his head. "In his world, people are problems to eliminate." "That's not solving problems. That's murder." "I know." "Then why—" She stopped walking. "Why didn't you stop him? You're his brother." Dojin turned to face her. The streetlight overhead cast harsh shadows. "Because I walked away when I was 18. I thought if I built something different, I could escape. But you don't escape family. Not really." She studied him. She saw the guilt there, the weight. It reminded her of herself after her brother died. wondering if she could have done something, been enough. "You're doing something now," she said quietly. He looked at her for a long moment. "Yeah, I am." The karaoke place sat dark between a convenience store and an abandoned pharmacy. Dojin unlocked the side entrance and led her inside. The VIP room was small but preserved. Red velvet couches, low table, dust-covered karaoke machine. Soundproofing foam lined the walls, creating an almost dreamlike quiet. "You'll be safe here," Dojin said. "At least tonight." Nyla sank onto the couch, exhaustion hitting her. "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow we figure out your next move." She looked up. "What about the truth? Those men who died?" Dojin hesitated. "The truth is dangerous. So is silence." He had no answer for that. In his office, Do Kwon stared at the photo on his phone. Nyla Brooks, 23, street performer. No family in Seoul. No one to miss her if she disappeared. Perfect. His subordinate waited by the door. "She's gone," the man reported. "Apartment's empty. No sign of her at her usual spots." Do Kwon set the phone down. "Someone's hiding her." "Who?" Do Kwon leaned back. He thought about the girl's face, young, defiant. He thought about the 3 men in that private room, their desperate eyes. He felt nothing. His empire, built on mafia networks that controlled half of Seoul's underground, had survived bigger threats than one witness. But something nagged at him. Something he couldn't name. Then that strange sensation happened. His chest tightened, sharp, unfamiliar. He pressed his palm to his sternum, frowning. "Find her," he said. "Use whatever resources you need." In the karaoke room, Nyla stood by the window, looking at the empty street. She hummed that lullaby again, her grandmother's song about a bird who flew too far from home. She wondered if she'd ever find her way back. Behind her, Dojin prepared tea on a small electric kettle. The earthy smell filled the room. "You don't have to do this," she said without turning. "Do what?" "Help me. You could walk away." Dojin brought her a paper cup of tea. The heat seeped through the paper. "I could, but then I'd be exactly like him." She turned to face him. "You really think you can stop him?" "I don't know." He looked down. "But I have to try." For the first time since the massacre, Nyla felt something shift, small and fragile. Hope. "Okay," she said. "Then we try together." Morning came slowly, filtered through the dusty blinds of the karaoke room. Pale sunlight turned everything soft and golden, transforming the shabby space into something almost peaceful. Nyla woke on the couch, disoriented for a moment. Then she saw Dojin sitting at the low table with 2 cups of instant noodles, and everything came flooding back. The private room, the gunshots, the rain, running, him. "Morning," Dojin said, looking up. There were dark circles under his eyes. He probably hadn't slept at all. She sat up, rubbing her face. "You stayed." "Couldn't leave you alone." He slid 1 cup of noodles toward her. She took it gratefully, suddenly aware of how hungry she was. They ate in silence for a while. Just the sound of cheap wooden chopsticks clicking and the distant hum of morning traffic filtering through the walls. "I've been thinking," Dojin said finally, setting down his chopsticks. "About what you said, about speaking up, about justice." Nyla looked up, waiting. "You're right," he continued. "Staying quiet is a choice. Staying out of it is a choice. And I've been making that choice for 11 years, telling myself it wasn't my responsibility, that I couldn't change what my brother became, But that was just an excuse to feel less guilty about running away. What are you saying? He met her eyes, and she saw something new there. Determination. I'm saying we don't just hide. We find a way to expose what happened. All of it. The execution. The connections. The whole corrupt system that lets people like my brother operate with impunity. Nyla's heart started to race. That's insane. He'll kill us both. Maybe. Dojin's voice was steady. Probably even. But at least we'll go down trying. At least those 3 men won't just disappear. At least their families will know what happened. Get closure. Maybe even justice. She stared at him. This man, this stranger she'd met less than 12 hours ago, was willing to risk everything. His life, his carefully constructed distance from his past, his hard-won peace. For her. For 3 dead men he'd never met. For an idea of justice that might be impossible to achieve. Why? She asked. Why would you do that? You don't owe me anything. You don't owe them anything. Dojin was quiet for a moment, looking down at his hands. When we were kids, he said slowly, Do-kwon and I, we made a promise. We were maybe 7 or 8. We'd just watched our father beat one of his lieutenants for a minor mistake. The guy's face was covered in blood. He was begging for mercy, and our father just kept hitting him. No emotion, just methodical violence. He paused, lost in the memory. That night, Do-kwon and I were in our room, and he was crying. He said, I don't want to be like him. I don't want to be someone who hurts people. And I said, then we won't be. We'll be different. We'll be better. Dojin looked up at her. We promised each other that night that we'd never become like our father, that we'd protect people instead of hurting them. But he broke that promise. Yeah, he did. And I ran away instead of fighting to keep it. I told myself I was honoring it by refusing to be part of that world. But really, I was just abandoning him, abandoning everyone he would hurt, telling myself it wasn't my problem. Nyla felt tears prick her eyes. You were just a kid. I was 18 when I left, old enough to make a choice, old enough to stay and fight, or at least try to pull him back from the edge. He shook his head. But I didn't. I chose safety over everything else. And now, 11 years later, here we are. My brother executing people in private rooms, and a brave woman risking her life to make sure those deaths mean something. He reached across the table and took her hand gently. So I'm choosing differently this time. He said, I'm choosing truth over safety, justice over comfort. And if that gets me killed, at least I'll die knowing I finally kept that promise we made when we were kids. Nyla looked at him, really looked at him, saw the determination in his eyes, the guilt he'd been carrying for over a decade, the chance for redemption he was seizing with both hands, even though it might destroy him. You understand this might not work, she said. Your brother is powerful, connected. We might do all this and still fail, still die, and he might walk away untouched. I know. And you're still willing to try? Yes. Are you? Nyla thought about Marcus, about his bright smile and terrible jokes, and the way he'd always protected her when they were growing up, about how he'd died alone on a street corner while people walked past, not wanting to get involved, about how the police had barely investigated because he was just another young black man in the wrong neighborhood, about how silence had killed him just as much as the bullet had. Yeah, she said. I'm willing to try. Dojin squeezed her hand gently. Then we're in this together. Both scared, both choosing. She squeezed back. Equal in fear, equal in choice. Exactly. That afternoon, after a few hours of restless sleep for both of them, Dojin made a phone call he hadn't made in years. "Mr. Huang," he said when the older man answered. "It's Dojin." "Dojin?" Mr. Huang's voice was warm, surprised. "What's wrong? You sound stressed." "I need a favor, a big one." There was a long pause, then Mr. Huang's voice came back, more cautious now. "Does this have to do with your family?" "Yeah, my brother specifically." "Then my answer is no." "Please, just listen." "No, you listen." Mr. Huang's voice turned hard, almost angry. "I've known you since you were 18 years old. I watched you walk away from that family with nothing but a backpack and borrowed money. I gave you a job when you had no experience, helped you build a life outside of that darkness. I've watched you become a good man, honest, kind, hardworking, and now you want to throw it all away by getting involved with your brother again?" "I'm not getting involved with him. I'm trying to stop him." "It's the same thing. You get in his way, you die. It's that simple." Dojin looked over at Nyla, who was watching him with concerned eyes. "There's a woman," he said. "She witnessed him execute 3 people last night. She has evidence, and he's hunting her. If I don't help her, she's dead. And those 3 victims just disappear like they never existed." Mr. Huang was quiet for a long moment. "Why is this your responsibility?" he asked finally, but his voice was softer now. "Because I've spent 11 years pretending that what my brother does isn't my problem. Telling myself that staying out of it makes me better than him. But it doesn't. It just makes me a coward who lets innocent people die." "You're not a coward." "Then help me not be one now." Another long silence. Dojin could hear Mr. Huang breathing on the other end, could practically hear him thinking. "What do you need?" the older man asked finally. Dojin felt relief wash over him. "I need someone in the media we can trust. Someone my brother can't buy or intimidate. Someone who will run the story even if it means going up against the Park family." "That's a very short list. Actually, it might be a list of one." "Who?" "Kim Sun-hee. She's an investigative journalist. Works for one of the independent online news sites. She's been trying to expose corruption in Seoul for years. Your father tried to bribe her once, back in the day. She told him to go to hell and then published a piece about the attempted bribe." "Did my father try to have her killed?" "Yeah. She survived. Went into hiding for a few months, but she came back. She's tough, stubborn, and she hates bullies." "Do you have her contact information?" "I'll have to dig for it. She changes her number pretty regularly for safety reasons, but I know someone who knows someone. Give me a few hours." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This is probably going to get you killed, and I'm going to feel responsible." "You're not responsible. This is my choice." Mr. Huang sighed heavily. "Your choice to finally stop running from your family. I suppose that's admirable. Stupid, but admirable." "That's the nicest insult you've ever given me." "Take care of yourself, Dojin. And that woman. If she's brave enough to stand up to your brother, she deserves to survive this." "I'll do my best." The call ended. Dojin set down his phone and looked at Nyla. "We might have a way forward," he said. "A journalist who might be willing to run the story. But it's going to take some time to set up the meeting." "How much time?" "A day or 2, maybe. Can you hide out here that long?" Nyla looked around the dusty karaoke room. It wasn't much, but it was safer than being out on the streets with Dokwan's people hunting her. "Yeah," she said. "I can manage." Dojin nodded. Good. I'll bring you food, supplies, whatever you need. And I'll keep working on setting up the meeting with Kim's son Hee. What about you? Won't your brother notice if you're acting strange? Probably. But he and I don't talk much anyway. He doesn't keep close tabs on me. I'm just the brother who walked away. The disappointment. The weak one. You're not weak. Dojin smiled slightly. Tell my father that. Your father sounds like a terrible person. He was. He died 3 years ago. Heart attack. My brother took over everything. Did you go to the funeral? No. I found out about it 2 days after it happened. Do Kwon didn't tell me. Didn't think I'd want to know. Dojin's voice was flat. He was probably right. Nyla wanted to say something comforting, but what could she say? That she was sorry his father died? She wasn't. From everything Dojin had said, the man had been a monster who'd broken his own sons. Instead, she just said, family is complicated. That's putting it mildly. That evening, as the sun was setting and painting the dusty karaoke room in shades of orange and pink, Dojin's phone rang. He looked at the screen. His whole body went tense. Do Kwon. Nyla's eyes went wide. She'd been humming softly, practicing a song, but she fell silent immediately. Dojin stared at the phone for 3 rings, his mind racing. If he didn't answer, his brother would know something was wrong. If he did answer, he'd have to lie to the person who'd known him longest. Who could probably read him better than anyone? On the 4th ring, he answered. Yeah, he said, keeping his voice neutral. Brother. Do Kwon's voice came through smooth and cold, like ice water. It's been a while. How have you been? Fine, busy with work. You know how it is. Do I? There was something in Do Kwon's voice, a slight edge. We haven't spoken in, 6 months? 7? Something like that. And yet here I am, calling you. Do you know why? Dojin's hand tightened around the phone. No idea. I'm looking for someone, a woman, young, American, brown skin. Sings at subway stations, goes by the name Nyla Brooks. Dojin forced himself to breathe normally, forced his voice to stay level. Why are you telling me this? Because she witnessed something she shouldn't have witnessed, and now she's disappeared, gone to ground, and I thought... Do Kwon paused. I thought maybe she found help. Someone naive enough, or brave enough, or stupid enough to hide her from me. And you think that someone is me? I think you've always had a soft spot for strays. Even when we were kids, you'd bring home injured birds, stray cats, whatever needed saving. Our father beat that out of you, or so I thought. But maybe some habits die hard. Dojin could feel Nyla's eyes on him, could see her fear. I don't know any American singers, he said, and I definitely don't know anyone named Nyla Brooks. Why would I? I don't know. Why would you? Do Kwon's voice was deceptively casual. But let me make something very clear, little brother. This woman, she's a liability, a threat to everything I've built, everything our family has built. And threats need to be eliminated, cleanly, quickly, permanently. Sounds like you have it handled then. Do I? Another pause. Here's the thing, Dojin. I've been thinking about you lately, about how we used to be, about that promise we made when we were kids. Do you remember? Dojin's chest tightened. Which promise? The one where we said we'd always protect each other, that we'd never be enemies. That blood was thicker than anything else in this world. I remember. Good. Because I'm calling in that promise now. If you know where this woman is, if you're helping her, I need you to tell me. I need you to give her back, or at least step aside and let me handle this. And if I don't know where she is, then you have nothing to worry about. Do-kwon's voice turned harder. But if I find out you've been lying to me, if I find out you've been protecting her, helping her, then we have a problem, a serious problem, because that would mean you've chosen her over me, a stranger over your own blood, and I can't let that stand. Dojin felt his pulse hammering in his throat. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Give her back, or the next time I see you, you'll wish I'd been merciful. The line went dead. Dojin set the phone down slowly. His hand was shaking. Nyla stood up. He knows. He suspects. There's a difference. Not much of one. She wrapped her arms around herself. What do we do? Dojin looked at her. In that moment, he made his choice. Final and absolute. Not to run, not to hide, not to abandon her the way he'd abandoned his brother all those years ago. To fight. We finish this, he said. We get you to that journalist. We expose what he did, and we do it before he figures out for certain that I'm helping you. That's maybe a day or two, if we're lucky. Then we better move fast. They left the karaoke place that night under cover of darkness, moving through the city like ghosts. Dojin had mapped out a route using back alleys and side streets, avoiding main roads and anywhere with heavy CCTV coverage. He led Nyla to a 24-hour laundromat on the edge of Koreatown, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and the fluorescent lights buzzed loud enough to discourage conversation. It was nearly empty. Just an elderly woman folding clothes in the corner and a tired-looking man asleep in one of the plastic chairs, a newspaper over his face. The place smelled like industrial detergent and damp fabric. Outside, a light rain had started again, tapping gentle fingers against the windows. Nyla sat in one of the orange plastic chairs, staring at the row of washing machines spinning their loads. The rhythmic tumble of clothes was almost hypnotic. Dojin bought 2 coffees from the vending machine, weak, bitter, lukewarm, and handed her one. You okay? He asked, sitting beside her. She shook her head slowly. No, but I don't think I've been okay for a long time. You want to talk about it? She took a sip of the terrible coffee. It tasted like cardboard and regret. Chicago, South Side. My brother Marcus. He was 20 when he died. I was 16. He was walking home from his shift at a grocery store. Wrong place, wrong time, gang shooting. Dojin listened, saying nothing. The police came, asked questions, took notes, said they'd investigate. They never did. No arrests, no suspects, no justice. Just another young black man dead on a street corner. And the city moved on like he never existed. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly around the coffee cup. After the funeral, I started singing. Marcus had always said I had a good voice, told me I should do something with it. So I started performing on street corners, subway platforms, anywhere people would listen. Started with gospel songs my grandmother taught me, then soul, then whatever people wanted to hear. What made you come to Seoul? A Korean tourist heard me singing at Union Station, gave me his card, said if I ever wanted to try performing in Seoul, he could help me find venues. I thought, why not? Fresh start, new city, escape the ghosts back home. Did it work? She smiled bitterly. For a while, 18 months, and then last night happened, and I realized you can't escape ghosts. They find you eventually. Different faces, same story. People dying. People in power covering it up. silence being chosen over justice. She turned to look at Dojin, her eyes fierce despite the tears gathering in them. Those 3 men tonight, I only saw them for maybe 30 seconds before they died. But I saw their faces, saw them reaching out. One of them, her voice cracked. One of them had a photo in his hand, a little girl, his daughter. He was holding it up, showing your brother, begging him to think about what would happen to her. What did my brother do? Nothing. He just stood there, like she didn't matter. Like that little girl losing her father didn't matter. Like those 3 men's lives didn't matter. She wiped her eyes angrily. And I thought, if I stay silent, I'm saying their lives didn't matter either. I'm making the same choice everyone made when Marcus died. The choice to look away, to not get involved, to protect myself instead of protecting the truth. Dojin felt something break inside his chest. This woman, this brave, furious, heartbroken woman, carrying the weight of her brother's death and now 3 strangers' deaths, refusing to let any of them be forgotten. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met, he said quietly. I'm one of the most terrified people you've ever met, she corrected. But I'm done letting fear make my choices. Done letting powerful people get away with treating human lives like they're disposable. What changed? Nothing changed. I've always felt this way. But before, I could tell myself it wasn't my business. That someone else would speak up. That I didn't have evidence, didn't have proof, couldn't make a difference. She pulled out her phone, looking at the audio file. But now, I have proof. I have evidence. I have the power to make sure those 3 men aren't forgotten. And if I don't use that power, if I run away to save myself, then their deaths are on me too. Dojin understood. He understood completely, because he'd spent 11 years telling himself the same lies. That his brother's actions weren't his responsibility, that walking away was enough, that someone else would stop him. We'll make sure they're not forgotten, he said. I promise you that. Across the city, Do Kwon stood in his office, staring at a series of photographs spread across his desk. CCTV images, grainy, time-stamped, showing Nyla Brooks running through an alley about 6 blocks from the restaurant. Timestamp, 10:47 p.m., and another image, time-stamped 10:52 p.m., showing a man with an umbrella entering the same alley. The angle was wrong to get a clear face shot, but the build was familiar. Too familiar. Do Kwon picked up the photo, studying it closely. His subordinate stood across the desk, waiting. This man, Do Kwon said. You're sure this is the alley where the witness was last seen? Yes, sir. We have her entering at 10:47, and then this man entering 5 minutes later. Neither of them come out the other end of the alley. There's a side entrance to a bar halfway down. Security camera's been broken for months, so we don't have footage of them entering or leaving. Which bar? Place called the Brass Monkey. Small operation. Owner is a guy named Huang. No significant connections we could find. He employs 3 people, 2 dishwashers and a bartender. The bartender's name? The subordinate consulted his notes. Park Do-jin. Do Kwon went very still. My brother works there? Has for about 5 years, according to employment records. Do Kwon set down the photo carefully. That strange ache in his chest flared again, sharp and insistent. His brother, his twin, the one person in the world who shared his blood, his face, his beginning, if not his choices. The one person he'd let walk away 11 years ago because keeping him close hurt too much. Because watching him disapprove, watching him judge, watching him refuse to understand, it was easier to let him go. Easier to pretend they weren't connected anymore. But apparently, they were more connected than Do Kwon had realized. "Bring him in," Do Kwon said quietly. "Sir?" "Bring my brother to me, quietly. Don't hurt him. Just bring him here. I need to talk to him, too." "And if he resists?" "He won't." Do Kwon's voice was certain. "He knows better." The subordinate left. Do Kwon stood alone in his office, looking at the photo of a man with an umbrella who might be his brother, who was definitely his brother, helping a witness, protecting her, choosing her over his own blood. The betrayal burned almost as much as the ache in his chest. At the laundromat, Dojin's phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Huang. "They know. Get out. Now." Dojin grabbed Neela's arm. "We have to go." "What?" "Now." They ran, out of the laundromat into the rain, down the street, into an alley. Behind them, a black car pulled up to the laundromat's entrance. 3 men in dark suits got out and entered the building. Dojin pulled Nyla deeper into the maze of alleys that made up old Koreatown. Left, right, through a parking garage, down a fire escape, under a bridge where the homeless slept in cardboard boxes. They ran until Nyla's lungs burned, until her legs threatened to give out, until the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. Finally, Dojin pulled her into a narrow gap between 2 buildings, barely wide enough for them to stand sideways. They pressed against the brick wall, breathing hard, rain pouring down around them. "How did they find us?" Nyla gasped. "CCTV probably, or someone saw us and reported it, or..." Dojin's jaw clenched. "Or my brother put it together. Figured out I was helping you." "What do we do now?" "We move up the timeline. No more waiting. We call Kim Sun-hee tonight. Set up the meeting for tomorrow. Get the story out there before my brother can stop us." "Will she even meet with us on such short notice?" "She'll meet with us if we tell her we have proof of 3 executions ordered by Park Do Kwon. She's been trying to expose him for years." Nyla nodded, still breathing hard. "Okay, call her." Dojin pulled out his phone. Mr. Huang had sent him Kim Sun-hee's number 30 minutes ago, along with a warning. "She's paranoid and difficult. Don't take it personally." He dialed. The phone rang 4 times. Then a woman's voice answered, sharp and suspicious. "Who is this and how did you get this number?" "My name is Park Do-jin. Mr. Huang gave me your number. I have information about my brother, Park Do Kwon." A pause. "The gangster, Park Do Kwon?" "Yes." "And you're his brother?" "Twin brother." Another pause, longer this time. "What kind of information?" "Audio evidence of him ordering 3 executions last night, plus a witness willing to testify." He heard her draw in a sharp breath. "Where are you?" she asked. "Hiding. He's hunting us." "Can you get to Sinchon? There's a 24-hour coffee shop near the station. 3rd floor, back corner. I'll be there in 2 hours wearing a red scarf. Come alone, you and the witness. If I see anyone else, I walk." "We'll be there." The line went dead. Dojin looked at Nyla. "We have a meeting. 2 hours. Sinchon." "Can we trust her?" "I don't know, but she's our only shot." Nyla nodded. "Then let's take it." They slipped out of the narrow gap between buildings and back into the rainy night. 2 fugitives racing against time and a killer who shared half of Dojin's DNA. They didn't make it to Sinchon. Do Kwon's men were waiting 3 blocks from the subway station. 6 of them, positioned strategically, cutting off escape routes. Dojin saw them too late. He grabbed Nyla's arm and tried to pull her into an alley, but more men appeared at the alley's entrance. Trapped. A black sedan pulled up. The back door opened. Do Kwon stepped out. He looked exactly like Dojin, same height, same build, same face, but there was something fundamentally different about him. The way he moved, the way his eyes tracked them with cold calculation, the absolute absence of warmth in his expression. "Hello, brother," Dokwon said. Dojin instinctively stepped in front of Nyla. "Let her go. This is between us." "No." Dokwon's gaze shifted to Nyla. "This is about her. She's the only witness to my cleanup operation. Remove her, problem solved. Everything goes back to normal." "She's not a problem. She's a human being." Dokwon smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You always were soft, even when we were kids. Father used to beat you for it." "Do you remember? He'd make you watch while he hurt people, trying to teach you to be strong, and you'd cry. Every single time." "Empathy isn't weakness." "Isn't it?" Dokwon gestured to his men. "I've built an empire by eliminating weakness, by refusing to let emotion cloud my judgment, by making hard choices that people like you can't stomach. And where has that gotten me? Power, control. Everything our father promised would be ours if we were strong enough." "And where has it gotten you emotionally?" Dojin shot back. "You're alone. You have no real relationships. No one who actually cares about you beyond fear or obligation. You've turned yourself into a machine." Something flickered in Dokwon's eyes. Pain, maybe, or anger. But it was gone in an instant, buried under that cold mask. "Get in the car," he said. "Both of you." "No." Dokwon's expression hardened. "That wasn't a request." One of his men pulled out a weapon, nothing dramatic, just a simple threat made physical. Dojin's hands went up slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay, we'll go. Just don't hurt her, please." Dokwon studied him for a long moment, then nodded to his men. "They come willingly. No unnecessary force." They drove in tense silence to the container port on Seoul's outskirts. The Park family's logistics headquarters, though that wasn't its official designation. Officially, it was just a shipping company. Unofficially, it was where problems got buried. Literally. Dokwon led them through the maze of shipping containers to a warehouse near the water. The door rolled up with a mechanical groan, revealing a vast empty space lit by harsh industrial lights. The sound of their footsteps echoed off the concrete floor and metal walls. Dokwon's men forced Dojin and Nyla to their knees in the center of the warehouse. Neela's bandaged hands pressed against the cold concrete. Dojin stayed close beside her. Dokwon stood in front of them, looking down with that same cold expression. "You know why we're here," he said. "To kill us," Nyla said. Her voice shook, but her eyes were defiant. "To silence the truth." "To eliminate a liability," Dokwon corrected. "Nothing personal, just business." "Those 3 men you executed, was that just business too? When that man held up the photo of his 5-year-old daughter and begged you to think about her, was that just business?" Dokwon's jaw tightened slightly. "They stole from me, from my organization. There are consequences for that." They were human beings. They were thieves. They had families, people who loved them, children who will grow up without fathers. "Yes, well, choices have consequences." Dokwon turned to his brother. "You of all people should understand that, Dojin. You chose to walk away from our family. That had consequences. You chose to help this woman. That has consequences too." Dojin met his eyes. "The consequence being what? You kill your own brother?" "If necessary." "And that doesn't bother you? Not even a little?" For a moment, Dokwon said nothing. His hand went to his chest, pressing against that persistent ache. "You've always been my weak point," he said quietly. "When we were kids, Father knew the fastest way to make me cooperate was to threaten you, hit you, hurt you, because I couldn't stand seeing you in pain. So I learned. I learned to bury that weakness, to care less, to turn it off. That's not strength. That's just self-mutilation. It's survival." "No," Nyla said, drawing Do-kwan's attention back to her. "No, it's cowardice. Real strength is feeling pain and choosing kindness anyway. Feeling fear and choosing integrity anyway. Your brother is standing here because he chose what's right, not because of me. He chose to stop running from who you've become, to stop being complicit in your violence. That's courage. What you're doing, this is just—" She searched for the word. "This is just fear wearing a crown." Do-kwan stared at her. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant crash of waves against the port's concrete barriers. Then his expression hardened. "Eloquent," he said. "But ultimately pointless. You're still a witness, and witnesses are still liabilities." He nodded to one of his men. "End this." The man raised his weapon. The warehouse echoed with the sound of a weapon being readied. Dojin looked at Nyla. In her eyes, he saw everything. Fear, hope, the refusal to surrender. She was shaking, but not crying. Still standing. He made his choice. "Run," he whispered. Then he moved. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Dojin slammed into the armed man, and they both went down. Nyla scrambled up and ran for the door. "Stop her!" Do-kwan shouted, but Dojin was already moving. He grabbed his brother's arm, pulling him back. "Let her go!" Do-kwan shoved him off. "You're choosing her over me?" "I'm choosing what's right over what's easy." Another gunshot rang out. Dojin staggered. His hand went to his side. When he pulled it away, it was red. "No!" Nyla stopped at the door, voice breaking. "Go!" Dojin shouted. "Now!" She ran. Dojin collapsed to his knees. Blood pooled beneath him. His vision blurred. Do-kwan stood over him, weapon in hand. His face was pale. His hand trembled. "Why?" Do-kwan's voice cracked. "Why would you do that?" Dojin looked up at his brother. Even now, he saw who Do-kwan used to be. The boy who'd cried when their father left, who'd held Dojin's hand in the dark. "Because someone had to break the cycle," Dojin said, voice fading. "Someone had to choose light over darkness." He fell forward. Do-kwan caught him. For the first time in years, Do-kwan felt something inside him shatter. The armor he'd built, wound by wound, cracked open. And all that remained was grief. "Brother," he whispered. "Please don't." But Dojin was already gone. Nyla ran through the port's maze of containers. Behind her, shouts echoed. Footsteps pounded. She clutched her phone to her chest. The recording was still there. 3 voices pleading. 1 cold voice ordering. Gunshots. Evidence. She had to survive long enough to use it. She found a gap between containers and squeezed through, her breath coming in gasps. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and sent the audio file to 3 people. Mr. Huang, a journalist she'd met at a subway performance, and the police tip line. Then she kept running. 3 days later, Seoul Central District Office held a press conference. The room was packed. Journalists, photographers, officials. Camera flashes popped like lightning. Nyla stood at the podium, hands gripping the edges. She wore a simple black dress. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was calm, but her eyes were marked by sleeplessness and grief. The recording device sat on the table in front of her. "My name is Nyla Brooks," she said, "and I'm here to tell you what I witnessed." The room went silent. She pressed play. The audio was grainy, distorted, but clear enough. 3 voices pleading, a cold voice giving an order. Gunshots, then silence. Nyla looked up. 3 men were killed 4 nights ago in a private room at a restaurant in Koreatown. Their names were Kim Sung-ho, Lee Min-jae, and Choi Dae-sung. They were fathers, brothers, sons, and they were murdered on the orders of Park Do-kwon. The room erupted. Questions shouted from every direction, cameras flashing everywhere. Nyla didn't flinch. "I was there," she continued. "I witnessed it, and I have proof." She paused, her voice thick with emotion. "But I'm also here because of Park Do-jin, Do-kwon's twin brother. He protected me when he could have stayed silent. He sacrificed himself so the truth could survive. This is for him." Outside the building, Do-kwon sat in his car, watching the broadcast on his phone. His hands shook. The authorities would come soon. He knew that. His empire, everything he'd built, was crumbling. But all he could think about was his brother. The way Do-jin had looked at him in those final moments. Not with hatred, not with fear, with love. And it had destroyed him. Do-kwon closed his eyes. He could still feel his brother's weight in his arms, still hear his voice. Someone had to break the cycle. For the first time in his life, Do-kwon understood what his brother had been trying to show him all along. Power wasn't strength, control wasn't safety, and silence wasn't protection. It was surrender. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They surrounded the car, weapons drawn. Do-kwon stepped out slowly, hands raised. As they placed handcuffs on his wrists, he looked up at the overcast sky. Rain was coming again. He thought about his brother, about the bar, about the life Do-jin had built. Small, humble, but honest. And for the first time, Do-kwon felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not just regret, but the possibility of redemption. 2 months later. The cafe was small, tucked into a quiet corner near a traditional bathhouse. Soft light filtered through the windows. The smell of coffee and fresh bread filled the air. Nyla stood behind the counter, pouring tea. She'd cut her hair short. She looked different, lighter somehow, like she'd set down something heavy. The door chimed. She looked up. Do-kwon walked in. He looked different too, thinner, lines around his eyes that weren't there before. Those eyes had lost their coldness. Now they just looked tired, human. "Hi," he said. "Hi." They stood there for a moment, neither speaking. "I heard you opened this place," Do-kwon said. "In his memory." "Yeah." Nyla gestured to the sign on the wall. Do-jin's corner. Simple wooden letters. It felt right. Do-kwon nodded. "Can I sit?" "Yeah." He sat at the small table by the window. Neela brought him tea and sat across from him. "I'm sorry," Do-kwon said, "for everything. For what I did. For what I became. For what it cost him." Nyla looked at him. She saw the guilt carved into his features, the grief, the slow, painful process of becoming someone new. "I know," she said. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, light rain started to fall. Gentle, washing the streets clean. He loved you, Neela said finally. Even at the end, he wanted you to be free. Do Kwon's throat tightened. I don't deserve that. No, she agreed, but he gave it anyway. That's what love is. It's not about deserving. Do Kwon looked down at his hands. They trembled slightly. I don't know how to be different. You start by trying. Nyla reached across the table and placed her hand over his. One day at a time, one choice at a time. He looked up at her. In her eyes, he saw something unexpected. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it, and that was enough for now. Will you help me? He asked quietly. She was quiet for a long moment, then she nodded. Yeah, I think I will. That night, Nyla sang at the small stage in the corner of the cafe. It was her grandmother's lullaby, the one about the bird who flew too far from home. But tonight, the ending was different. Tonight, the bird found its way back. As she sang, she thought about Dojin, about his kindness, his courage, the way he'd chosen light even when surrounded by darkness. And she thought about Do Kwon, the man who'd spent his life building walls, only to have them torn down by the brother who loved him enough to die for him. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this. Sometimes, the most inspirational thing you can do is choose to break a pattern, to stop a cycle, to turn on a light, even when it costs you everything. And sometimes, that choice is enough to save not just yourself, but someone else too. Maybe even save the person you thought was beyond saving. After the cafe closed, Nyla and Do Kwon stood outside, watching the rain. Will you stay? She asked. After the trial? Do Kwon looked at her. I don't know. I face sentencing next month. I might be gone for years. But after? He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Yeah, after. If you'll have me. If I can prove I'm worth it. Nyla smiled, small, cautious, but real. We'll see. One day at a time, remember? They stood there for a while longer, side by side. Two people who'd lost everything and found something new. This wasn't about romance, not in the traditional sense. It was deeper than that. It was about two broken people learning to trust again, about building something honest from the ruins of tragedy. Maybe someday it would become romance, the kind built on respect and earned trust. But for now, it was simply a promise to build something different together, something that honored the man who died believing they both could change, something worth fighting for. As the rain fell, Neela thought about her brother, about the three men in that private room, about Dojin. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. Not for justice, that had already come, but for peace. And as the rain washed the city clean, she felt it. A small, fragile thing. Hope. It was motivational in the truest sense. Not because it was easy, but because it reminded her that even in the darkest places, even after the worst losses, light could still emerge. That family wasn't just blood. It was the people who chose to stand with you. That truth was worth the cost. And that redemption, no matter how impossible it seemed, was always worth pursuing. If you've stayed with this story until the very end, thank you. Stories like these remind us that even when we've lost everything, even when we've made terrible choices, there's always a chance to choose differently, to be better, to honor those who believed in us by becoming the people they saw in us. Don't forget to subscribe if this story moved you, because every week we bring you stories about the power of family, truth, and second chances. Stories that remind us why love in all its forms, is always worth fighting for.